Hello Star Wars fans and welcome back to Victoria's Cantina, where today we're having a look at the Hasbro Star Wars action figures, 4-inch action figures. I don't know, all I know is that I knew these were coming out. I knew they were going to be available through discount retailers. I was in Texas for the Thanksgiving holiday visiting my family, and I found these at Five Below, $3.25 each, and I thought, why not? You guys know me, I like weird stuff, especially when it's weird Star Wars stuff. I reviewed those 4 or 5 POA 6-inch figures that were available through like Big Lots and Family Dollar a couple years back. And yeah, I know these are like 0 POA or 1 POA. I don't even know exactly. So let's find out together. Let's talk packaging. It is very simple, as you can see. There's really not a whole lot to these, in fact. It's basically just like a white backing with Darth Vader on top and a Five Below sticker, a bubble containing the figure and the accessory, in this case the lightsaber blade. The back of these all are pretty much the same, so you can see all of the different characters that are available in this. I don't know if it's going to be multiple waves, or maybe this is wave 1 or this is it, I don't know. But nonetheless, pretty cool to see. There's the UPC right there. Alright, let me take a moment, get these unboxed. When we come back, we'll take a closer look at all of these figures. Alright, you guys, so here are the figures out of the packaging. Interesting stuff. Let's go ahead and start off left to right. We'll kick things off with Lord Vader. Alright, so here's Darth Vader out of the packaging. I'm laughing because these are kind of weird, but I'm also a little bit intrigued, because like I said, weird stuff. But I want to take a look at the likeness on this Vader figure and see what we got. So that's actually a really nice helmet sculpt. It's a little bit dusty. That's actually a really nice helmet. Nicely proportioned. It looks like a New Hope Vader's helmet, but I don't know if this is made to be a specific film Vader, or if it's just like Vader. I think it's just Vader. It looks good. You can kind of see the seam line on the dome. That's kind of the case sometimes in the 3 3/4-inch figures, so that's not really too surprising. But yeah, it looks pretty decent in terms of sculpt. From the front, it looks nice. It basically looks like a little statue. I'm not sure if you guys remember, Applause used to do like these little figurines. It kind of reminds me of those. I'm going back to like the late 90s. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit. But yeah, so you can see he's holding his lightsaber. I think it's permanently attached. The hilt itself doesn't look very accurate. Should not be silver on top. The head does not move. The legs don't move because they're attached to the cape. You can actually see where they widen the cape so that, he can stand. And he does stand no problem. You're not going to have any, concerns about articulation causing the figure to fall over. It stands. And yeah, it's nicely sculpted. There's not really a whole lot I could say about it because it's not really a figure. It's just like a little figurine, I guess. But it's not an action figure. It's a figurine. It looks decent. The paint is pretty good on it. You can see there is some silver, there's some blue, there's some red. The head is just, flat out solid black, as is most of the costume. A little bit of silver here on the chest armor. But other than that, not a whole lot else to say here. So let's look at the lightsaber blade. So it's a nice red color. You can see it right here. It's got a little peg right there. So it looks like this is just going to peg in right up here. Yeah, just like that. So now he's got his lightsaber. Yeah, it looks decent. It's not quite, it doesn't look perfectly flat in there. Yeah, I don't know if that's any better. Yeah, so this is interesting. So now he's got his lightsaber, and the blade actually looks a little bit long. Or is it just me? It seems a little bit too long. Maybe not. Yeah, it's weird, but I kind of like it for $3.25. Why not? All right, so here's Darth Vader alongside the Vintage Collection Darth Vader, who you can see is a little bit taller. This is the one that came out originally in 2010, was reissued early this year. And part of the reason he might be a little taller is because this 0 POA, it's so funny to say 0 POA. Vader is, he's kind of like in a stance, but also I think he's just a little bit short for Darth Vader. So yeah, you can definitely see that there is a size difference here. That brings us to everybody's favorite Wookiee, Chewbacca. And yeah, this one is a little bit of a harder sell for me. Just look at that likeness. It's kind of weird. I mean, it looks like Chewie, right? But the eyes look a little creepy. And his teeth are not painted, even though they are sculpted in there. He's holding his bowcaster. Bowcaster looks decent enough. Doesn't come out of his hands or anything. And he's got his bandolier and his satchel. And they didn't paint the back part of the bandolier. Come on, Hasbro. Would it have cost them that much to do that? At the very least. I mean, this is already like a bare minimum figure and they couldn't even paint that. Weird. Annoying. I mean, he's pretty basic. There's really not a whole lot to say about it. The paint apps are actually pretty decent where they did paint it in here. So you can see you have like, your browns, you have your more chocolatey, more muddy looking browns here. And that's about it. His toes are sculpted. So there's that, but his nails were not painted on the top. So yeah, it's another weird one. Here's our Chewbacca next to our Black Series 3 3/4 inch Chewbacca that came out a few years back. And yeah, I mean, same sort of thing as with Vader. You can see that he's a little bit small. Not a little bit small, he's a lot small. And I think that goes to these figures kind of all being the same size, not really scaled one between the other. They're just all kind of like, flat, like 4 inches. So very interesting to see, and also very interesting to see what, $10 price increase about will get you. All right, so we have Luke Skywalker, and I don't think it looks that bad. Looking here at the likeness, it's not terrible. It kind of reminds me a little bit of those older Luke figures that Hasbro used to do, like in the earlier 2000s, where the likenesses weren't quite there, but they weren't awful. Well, some of them were awful. The sculpt actually looks pretty decent. It does look like Mark Hamill in Return of the Jedi. I mean, it does. It looks like him. It's just painted a little bit. If it had that photo reel, this would probably be one of the best Hasbro Luke Skywalker sculpts. But it is very pasty because of how they painted it. The hair color is actually pretty nice. It looks pretty film accurate to me. And the eyes look decent. For a $3.25 figure, I'm not, raving about these or anything. I'm just telling you for what you're paying, they're not too bad. And the likeness on this one is actually pretty good. It's got a decent sculpt to it. Just, a little lackluster in the paint department. He's got his lightsaber. It looks a little too bulky. Doesn't look very accurate. The costume is very glossy black, but there is some painted detail there in the belt. And yeah, I mean, decent enough. No peg holes in the bottom of these guys. His lightsaber is right here. It's a nice green color. And it looks like it goes in just the same way that Vader's pegged in. So just like that. Again, I feel like it's a little bit too long. Doesn't it look a little too long of a blade? Shouldn't it maybe stop like around here? Here-ish? I don't know. Whatever. They probably just sculpted one blade and did it in multiple colors. Let's compare it with Vader's. Yeah, they're about the same size. So that's exactly what they did. Here's Luke Skywalker next to our Vintage Collection Luke Skywalker. This was the one that came out earlier this year through San Diego Comic-Con. And is still available on their website after all this time on Hasbro Pulse. Anyway, yeah, he's a little bit short for a Luke Skywalker. You can see that the 0 POA one is a little bit bigger. And again, they're all kind of the same size, so they're not really scaled. So I think that's why you have this disparity. So obviously you can't display them together. These are kind of their own thing. All right, and last but not least, we have our Stormtrooper. And Stormtrooper is actually looking fairly decent. The helmet is actually proportionate to the body. It's maybe a little bit big, but better than being too small. But yeah, it looks decent enough to me. I like the way he's holding the blaster. Yeah, it's a good pose, even though you can't do anything with it. It looks decent enough. That head sculpt though is really nice. Maybe not quite as nice as their Rogue One sculpt on the newer figure, but, for what it is. This is all basically like one piece, I think. So they didn't paint the black parts of the armor, like underneath his under armor. They didn't paint it black. The front they did, but not the back. So it's kind of like the same thing with Chewie, where, they didn't paint certain parts of it that they should have painted. But the sculpt itself is nice. It's a very simple figure, not really a whole lot to be expected out of a figure that comes in this color, black and white. And yeah, the gun looks good. He stands just fine, no problems there. I say that. All right, so he does have a little bit of trouble standing, but he can stand. So again, you're not really going to worry too much about it. He does seem the least stable of the four. I don't know if it's because of his pose or what, but no, he seems to be okay. And then finally, we have the Stormtrooper along with the Vintage Collection Rogue One Stormtrooper. And you can see these are actually a little bit more in scale than some of those other figures were, but they're still not quite in scale. You can see that the proportions on the Rogue One figure look a lot better. The helmet's a little bit big on this other one. They don't look bad. I think they display better than the other ones, do, but they still don't look quite right. So yeah, you're probably not going to army build those guys. We'll stick with that one for our army builders. But it is interesting to see them together nonetheless. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there you have it. These are the Hasbro Star Wars 4-inch value figures. Value figures, right? Is that what we're calling them? Are we calling them 0 POA figures? I don't know what we're calling them. I'm just going to call them the value 4-inch figures. These are weird. Do you need them? Absolutely not. You do not need these in your collection. Do I need them in my collection? Not really, but like I said, when at Five Below and you see something new you haven't seen before and it's cheap and it's weird, you kind of got to have it. And that's what I did. I bought them. They're not too bad for $325. So what does that cost for the set then? You're paying $13 for the set of all four. That's the cost of one vintage collection figure. I can see why Hasbro might see there being a market for these, kind of like they did with those value 6-inch figures, which I'm still seeing actually at CVS. They cater to a different market. They cater to a different audience. It's probably a good thing they exist. But for people, long-term collectors of the Star Wars 3 3/4-inch line, there's really not a need for them. They seem a little bit strange, maybe a little off-putting. That's all fine if that's your opinion. I think they're okay. For what you're paying, for what you're getting, they're okay. If you don't like them, just pass them by. Hopefully some child somewhere will enjoy them. And maybe this will be their intro into 3 3/4-inch Star Wars, and then they'll go into vintage collection and other things. You never know. You never know who's buying this stuff. I do think it's interesting how they simulated scale between them. Vader and Chewie are a little bit bigger than Luke and the Trooper, but not really scaled to the film or anything, or scaled like the vintage collection is, but they kind of simulated, that difference in scale. So in any case, I hope you've enjoyed this review. I haven't seen any other reviews of these. Maybe there is, and I just missed it, but, I thought that they warranted doing a video because, now I'll have that memory of finding them at Five Below, visiting my hometown in Texas alongside my mother and my husband. And why wouldn't that warrant a video? So here they are. Let me know your thoughts down below. Will you be adding these to your collection? Be sure you're listening to the Cantina Chatter podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. And as always, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to Victoria's Cantina. Until next time, bye-bye.